Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Singer's Toolbox. Guys, today I'm so excited to show you the stuff that I got. I might have kind of bought across the spectrum, and this is not just about opera scores here today. So let's take a dive in, and on the advice of a couple of my mentors for this channel, I will be separating this out into sections so that if you want to look specifically at certain items, feel free, click through the timestamps. Also, don't forget, help me build this channel. Click like and subscribe at the bottom here and join the discussion on the Discord, because if you have any questions, if you have to find anything, please let me know. I like questions. I want to help you all. So with that, let us get into the score hall. All right, guys. So I wanted to start this off with a talk about books and resources. When you're building the Singer's Toolbox, right, or any kind of toolbox, you need the right tool for the job. And being a singer is such a multifaceted thing, right? I mean, we need the sheet music. We need the anthologies that have the selections for our auditions, right? But I also want to talk about when you want to have some resources, especially when you're teaching, of like vocal pedagogy books or, libretti sources for when you're doing certain operas, right? That's kind of where we're going with this. So first I want to start out talking about one of the new vocal pedagogy books I just picked up, the A Modern Guide to Old World Singing. Now, this is David Jones. Also, I respect the hell out of my friends who study with David Jones. Incredible singers all around. David Jones teaches this thing called the Swedish Italian School, and this book, I've been wanting this book for years. I couldn't afford it, not until I started working my current job. So the only thing that really held me back was just the price tag, both on the lessons and on the book, right? I mean, you can't usually find this book for under, I don't know, 70, 80 bucks. And eBay, they get kind of expensive. So I lucked out and I managed to find somebody who had this book on eBay who was willing to talk the price down a little bit. So very grateful. And I started reading this, but I'm interested to see where this goes. And when I do a video on vocal ped books, this is definitely going to be on the roster, because this is pretty cool. I mean, it's the Swedish Italian School. If it's good enough for Gedda, it's good enough for me, right? So kind of interested to see where this goes. The second book I have here is the National Schools of Singing, English, French, German, and Italian Techniques Revisited by Richard Miller. So, time to learn a little bit about undergraduate Michael from the Crane School of Music right here. I had one of my first voice teachers at Crane who was a student of Richard Miller. So I just read everything I could get my hands on by Richard Miller. Solutions for Singers. I begged my dad to get me the baritone, and bass book, and I don't even want to think about how much he spent on that. Right? I still can get my hands on the tenor book, by the way. One day, I'm going to be able to afford that. But I read this book at the Crane Library, and I must have taken it out several times between freshman and sophomore year, just because I found it endlessly fascinating how just slightly different the English, French, German, and Italian approaches were. I mean, not so much like these days, right? I mean, we kind of have an international music teaching system for voice. I mean, there are variances from country to country, little bits, but for the most part, there's kind of this international school, right? This book kind of details the history behind, I guess you could say, pre-world Europe and how they approached the voice. So, interesting read. Can't wait to read this again. Can't wait to see the differences of what I think about this from 19-year-old me to year old me. So, that's going to be really interesting. The last thing I want to bring up here is, this is kind of both heavy and emotional. Pun intended. So, guys, I finally bought the last 3 volumes of the Nico Castello libretti, so that I now have a complete collection. Now, this is kind of a story time. I first met Nico, my sophomore year of college. I did one of those programs with Carol, and it was incredible. Changed my life, got to work with them several times. But when I finished my what was it? My undergrad studies, I got to basically live with them for 3 months and work as a tech person and as a singer for Carol's company at the time. So when I got out and got into grad school, it was my mission. I just, after working with Nico, it was my mission that I really wanted to collect these, but I didn't want to kill myself in the process, like trying to buy all of these. But I lucked out on the first set of them that I bought. There was a singer who was just, had a family and was done, and I bought a whole bunch off of her. And this was, at a time where I was still in college, not making a whole lot of money, and I put a lot of myself into buying those books. Just over the years, picking up used copies here and there, whatever. I was really lucky and just in the right place at the right time. But during the pandemic, I was like, I'm never going to find the third volumes of these things because no one really uses them. No one really sells them. So I finally bought the third volume of the French libretti, the third volume of the Italian libretti, and the second volume of the Handel libretti. So just kind of a vanity purchase. But there are some interesting things in the French and the Italian libretti that I'm sure one day I will end up finding a use for. And with that, let's move on to our anthologies section. All right, guys, so let's talk about anthologies for a sec here. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a little bit of an anthology nut. I like having the right kind of tool for the job, especially, if I'm doing a concert gig, I'm going to try to find the anthology that has the most rep in the one book so that I don't have to tote everything around with me, right? In this case, I did a little bit more purchasing for my musical theater side of things, but some of this stuff really surprised me and what it would be useful for. First, I want to start off with the Singers Musical Theater Anthology, the Volume 6 for tenor. So now, I already had, originally this was kind of a vanity purchase, right? I already have up to Volume 6 for the women, and I had Volume 7 for the tenor, and then I realized I didn't have Volume 6. So I was like, oh, okay, let me look for one. Found this relatively cheap on eBay, well under the list price for it. But when I took a second look through, this really went from being a vanity purchase to one that was a little bit more useful than that. So this one... So, whereas in the Singers Musical Theater Anthologies, they try to cover a lot of ground, right? Putting just like a little bit of Golden Age, a little bit of like modern stuff. This has a little bit more modern than some of the other ones, but I don't not like it. A double negative, but I kind of like this. There's some stuff in here that I can definitely use if I'm looking for that gig that is just kind of right past my comfort zone of Golden Age, and I really need something that is lyric enough that I can sing it. This has some good selections, especially from stuff like New Brain, Gentleman's Guide. There's some Sondheim cuts in here, but I don't really need those. I'll show you in a sec why I don't. But definitely a solid purchase. There's also some good teaching material in here. If I have students who want to do some more contemporary theater, definitely worth the purchase for the Volume 6. Let's take a look at some other stuff. I also got the Sondheim for Singers tenor and the duets book. Now, I had known about this series, the Sondheim for Singers, for a while. I think I passed through the Juilliard store once and was like, wow, that's really cool. Because, whenever they have these with Hal Leonard and it's like a certain composer, especially if the composer's still alive, he usually has a little bit more say in the editing process. So I'm just thinking like, wow, what did Sondheim do to make this thing? But I was looking through it and guys, it's a lot more interesting than I thought. There are some songs that are set in alternate keys so that tenors can do them. Which the last video was on this, but those you really can't use for competitions. But, this has some stuff that say if I want to try to get outside of just doing Sweeney Todd, I can look into things like, I don't know, finishing the hat, or some teaching materials like Castle in the Sky. There's some really useful stuff in here, especially for the teaching. So kind of happy I ended up getting this book. The duets is pretty cool. I was looking through it, and what I found the most fascinating, you think a duets book, it's going to be like, oh, okay, so you're going to have a guy and a girl like doing their thing, or just, one singer and another singer doing their thing. This is like really, really diverse, from like just across all the shows and not just the popular hits. So really happy that I got this, especially, if I'm in a situation where I got to do, say, like teaching an opera scenes class or something in the future, and I just need something that is musical theater but is not like totally modern, that I want to do some Sondheim. I mean, there are some like good ensemble-y pieces in here. So awesome. Love it. Happy I got it. Let's move on to the next section. All right, guys. So we're coming into the final portion here. My favorite portion, the opera scores, right? So what did I waste my money on this week? Well, first, this one was kind of I wouldn't call it a bet. This was kind of a self-imposed challenge. Now, sometimes I kind of like to, test the superpowers a little bit. And if someone says, oh, I don't think I could find something, I go and try to find it just to prove my prowess, right? But this Haydn score here, this is L'Isola Disabitata. So my girlfriend is doing this show, and she was like, oh, I have to use the Baron writer for this, but I don't know where I could find the score if I wanted to get the original. And I'm like, hold my adult beverage. So I looked all over the place for this, and funny enough, I found it on Amazon. Usually I have to look a whole lot harder, but surprisingly, this was used on Amazon and for really cheap. So I was like, why not? Challenge accepted and challenge accomplished. So vanity purchase, maybe. Purchase for the pride, most definitely. So next one up here. This was another kind of, I was just really happy to find this finally. So this is Le Convenienze ed Inconvenienze Teatrali. So first off, guys, a little talk about these Ricordi critical editions. I love these critical editions, but there's a time and a place for them, depending on like what you're doing, right? So if I'm doing a super standard rep piece, like a Nabucco, actually that's a good example. I would much rather have like the regular Ricordi score, because there's just too much business going on for the critical edition, right? Actually, I did a production of Nabucco where I used the critical edition, and it was so frustrating. But there's a time and a place for the criticals, right? Especially for the Donizetti operas and the Rossini operas, because with Rossini operas there are like tons of mistakes all over the place in some of these things. Like if you're doing Cenerentola, like trust me, get the Ricordi critical, you'll be happy you did, right? But with the Donizetti operas especially, it's really some of these operas that aren't done as frequently, it's really important to have the critical, because there are some that were written in French but then commonly done in Italian, and it's kind of impossible to find the French version, right? Like if you're doing La Favorita, but they're doing it as La Favorite, where are you going to find the French, right? So the critical edition has the French. In this case here, there are a bunch of different editions of this. It also goes under the name of Viva la Mama. This one in particular, it's kind of cool. The volume 1 has all of the music for the actual show. And then the volume 2, there really isn't music. It's more cuts and notes and alternate parts, like inserts, if you're going to do it for a certain show. So interesting to have. I was also kind of happy to find the volume 1 because there are a bunch of people selling the volume 2. I bought the copy of the volume 2 at the Strand, and it was really inexpensive, and then I realized it was volume 2 and I didn't actually have the show. I just had like the notes. And I was really frustrated because to find the volume 1 is super expensive. So eventually I just kind of the waiting game. I was on eBay, and this just happened to pop up, the 2 volumes together, and I was like, screw it. It's right here. I'm going to get it. So, vanity purchase, maybe. Pride purchase, most definitely. Last one. Now, this is not really a, well, maybe it is a little bit of a vanity purchase, but this one also kind of had some emotional significance to it. So, when I was a lowly undergrad, my teacher, Dr. Boris Lucian, gave me this incredible baritone aria, and it served me really well for a long time. This is Dom Sebastian, and he gave this aria to me in Italian as Don Sebastiano. It's the O Lisbona al fin ti miro. If you're a baritone, look it up. Great aria. Loved singing it as a what was it? I think I sang it as a senior in my undergrad. I did it for like grad auditions. I used it. But anyway, this is a prime example of sometimes the Donizetti operas are in French and you need the French. This is done both in Italian and French, and it has both texts in it. So if you ever plan on doing the show, which, I mean, when's the last time someone did this, but you never know, it's here. I mainly bought this because I had sung the aria and I really missed my teacher, and it was inexpensive. And I really just wanted to finally have the whole score for this, because I've had a photocopy of it for years from, I guess someone did a production and they had the critical edition that was all photocopied out for them. But I really wanted to own the real thing, and when it's like $20, why not, right? So, Dom Sebastian. All right, guys. So some final thoughts and comments on this. I hope you all enjoy. I love bringing this kind of content to you guys so you can see a little bit into my thought process and why I purchase certain things. This is really about building the toolbox and being smart about your purchases, right? Were some of these vanity purchases? Most definitely. But building the toolbox is not just about all of the fancy opera scores here. It's about buying the stuff to build our trade, to build our craft, become better singers, become smarter singers. And if y'all have any thoughts about the stuff that I bought, the rep books and the anthologies, and even like the scores here, feel free, leave comments. I love talking about this stuff. Join the Discord, right? That's what it's for, so that we can have these conversations. If you're looking for something, I'm happy to help you. I love the questions. I'll see you guys next time. Make sure that you like and subscribe in the bottom here, and I hope you enjoyed on The Singer's Toolbox.